Hey, what's up, my friends? It's Devin here, and I'm the host of the Huddle Wisdom podcast. Welcome to another exciting episode from yours truly. I hope that you get something out of it. You've heard me say a lot about empathy over the last 6 or 7 months since the inception, is that the word? Inception of the Huddle Wisdom podcast, and also the YouTube channel, which is a little bit of a more recent development. Starting to put out a few more videos, because I realize that people sometimes like to see my face. I don't always like to see my own face, but apparently people like to see my face. As well as that, you can also access the podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. And I just wanted to let you know that you can also read about many of the things that I talk about here on the Huddle Wisdom blog, which is at www.huddlewisdom.com. Today, I'm going to be talking about how you as a parent or how you as a teacher can set down boundaries with children without feeling guilty. Actually, I've lied to you. There's always going to be some degree of discomfort when you're setting down boundaries with someone else, especially if you're empathic or naturally inclined to feel bad for someone else. You're inevitably going to feel a little bit bad. But I'm going to share with you 5 key things that will help you to metabolize those feelings, and so that you can be more reflective rather than reactive. I talk a lot about empathy, and I talk about it being the way that you can get in and jam with another person. The way that you can connect with our kids is through being able to understand where they're coming from, understand what they're feeling, and understand what they're thinking. The idea being that if you can validate someone and their emotions, it helps them to trust you, which then disarms their defenses, which then allows you to do your work. But it does not mean the same thing as bending to their will at every turn. Clearly, that doesn't work if you're trying to raise kids. Kids need limits. They need boundaries. They need to know where the line in the sand is, so to speak. We as adults need to show our children that there are boundaries that need to be respected in life, be it the law in your jurisdiction, or be it someone's private space, or simply learning that you can't just tread over someone else's boundary without there being repercussions and consequences. We have to afford each other respect for each other's space, but also we need to teach them to delineate their own boundaries and be okay with that. As I said before, we can all feel bad, of course, when our children push back against us, when we try to set limits with them. And there's different reasons for that. Some of us carry our own baggage that makes it difficult for us to enforce rules. But this is not going to be in the best interest of your kids or yourself in the long term. You've heard it said before that you can inadvertently build rods for your own back if you take the path of least resistance. Perhaps you grew up in a household that was very strict or rigid or inflexible, and the threat of punishment was enough to comply with your parents, for fear of being punished, right? Um, and to me, that's not a great way to parent. Sure, you might enforce compliance initially, but in the long run, you run the risk of rupturing relationships with your children, which in my view is much more important. Or you may have had a laissez-faire sort of upbringing where anything goes. There's a whole spectrum of upbringings, of course. Uh, and I mean, whatever the case, our upbringing has an impact on where we draw the line when it comes to rules and boundaries. I'm not going to tell you where your boundaries are, but I'm going to tell you that it's important that you have boundaries. It's important to reflect about our own upbringings because this plays out so naturally and insidiously in the way that we parent and interact with our own children when we're setting boundaries. Sometimes we become emotionally activated, which then leads us to behave in automatic ways that aren't always helpful. We get triggered to behave in ways that we might have behaved as children ourselves. It's funny how our brains sets up these circuits of behavior on the basis of past experience. And sometimes when similar sorts of emotions bubble up in the present moment, it can trigger old programs from our childhood. So it's important that we do some self-reflection. I can't say that enough. It's really, really helpful. It's important to understand that with children, their struggle against boundaries is very normal. It's expected. It's anticipated. It's natural. Don't be surprised if you receive pushback. That's just what kids do. It's just what humans do. We don't always like to be told what to do. We don't like the sense of having rules being enforced on us. So kids just push back. It's just what they do. And we have to learn not to take it personally. Remember, rules without reason leads to rebellion. So it does help to have a clear enough rationale to provide to your kids if you ever get asked why you've chosen to draw certain lines in the sand, or why you've chosen to make certain rules. But again, even if you have explained yourself, and you've explained yourself really well, you have to still expect some whinging. If you don't get any whinging, you're lucky. Congratulate yourself. Move on. Well done. Parent of the year. Well done. Remember though that if your kids are having difficulties working through your limits, I'll say that again. If your kids are having difficulties with the rules that you've set, and they have trouble staying within the boundaries that you've defined, don't be surprised by that. If they're having difficulties and they're struggling, it just simply means that they have yet to develop the skills to cope with those struggles. And what I mean by skills is, emotional regulation skills and critical thinking. Skills they can learn if you remain level-headed and reflective rather than overly reactive. Because it is in those moments that they do the best sort of learning, in the fire, so to speak. But you have to be level-headed. You have to be calm, cool, collected yourself if you're going to help your kids navigate those difficult emotions. I talk a lot about this in, I put out a free resource some months ago called the Emotional Storm Toolkit. It's free, and it helps you to develop a roadmap, a roadmap to help your kids deal with difficult emotions by first identifying the factors that makes it difficult for them. And then it helps you to anticipate problems down the road. But at the same time, this toolkit also helps you to repair problems in the road. So I encourage you to go and get it. Go to the website, huddlewhisdom.com/get tools, GETTOOLS. That's get tools, and give us your email and we'll send that to you. Make sure you check your spam box, because sometimes our emails go there. So make sure you check that. The children need to see that we can handle their big emotions and not crumble. But at the same time, don't be a stonewall. So you need to show them that you're authentic and that you're big enough to handle their resistance, that you can handle their emotions. You can empathize with them, see them, hear them, understand them. But don't buckle. Be firm, but don't be a stonewall. There's a few contradictions there, but not really. You have to be the iron fist in the velvet glove, so to speak. Make them know that you see them, that you can wear the storms, that you can handle it. Okay. All right. You hear them, you understand them. But once you've done that, move on. Don't dwell. Why? Because if you dwell on something, in my view, it makes it more difficult for kids to move on. Simple as that. This approach helps to model resilience in the face of challenge. Here's 5 things. Here are the 5 things. The first one, empathize with what they're feeling, thinking, and perceiving. I've talked about the 3-part empathy model before. Again, you can go to the blog and check out what I mean by that. But you're empathizing with what they're thinking. So you're trying to understand what they're actually processing, and then you need to know what they're actually feeling. Try and understand the emotion that they're the emotion behind their expressions, their physical expressions of grief, behind the pushback. Try and get a sense of what they're perceiving. Remember those magnets I've talked about before. Number 2, let your kids express themselves. Let them emote. Give them the time and the space to do that. Acknowledge their pains. Be that firm, steadfast rock, but be the iron fist in the velvet glove. Brings us to number 3. Hold the line. Be warm but firm. But do not shame your kids. Do not berate them. Do not humiliate them. I've said it as well in the past that shame is a powerful motivator for villainous behavior. Okay? Do not shame your kids. Number 4, make your case and then move on. Don't repeat. Don't lecture. Say it once and say it well. Move on. Number 5, at the end of the day, leave some space for reflection. Also, leave some space for some interaction. Talk with your kids. Lots of bedtime chats. How did they feel in the moment when they came up against resistance. Share how you felt when you came up against resistance. Praise them for taking things on the chin, even though it was difficult to adhere to your rules or to stay within the boundaries that you've defined. Don't forget to do your own self-reflection. All right, well, that's it this week, my friends. I hope this helps you to set boundaries without feeling overly guilty. If you feel guilty, that's normal, but don't dwell on that feeling. Move on, reflect, move on, and drop us a line. Let us know what you think. Let us know if that was helpful. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to the Emotional Storm Toolkit. Download it. It's a free resource. huddlewisdom.com/get tools. Give us your email and we'll send it to you. I know it will help you feel much less anxious about the way you discipline and raise your kids. And I want you to have that. It's free. Check it out. All right. Well, that was it for this week, my friends. I'm Davin Tan. I'm your host. You've been listening to the Huddle Wisdom podcast. I will see you next week. Cheers.